The year 2022 marked the 17th champion of the Mr. Olympia, Hadi Choopan. The Olympia, while considered the most prestigious bodybuilding event today, has only been around for 58 years. The history of bodybuilding goes much further, and in today's video, we'll dive into a brief evolution of bodybuilding. The roots of bodybuilding can be seen as early as in the late 19th century. The most famous of the bodybuilders in this time period, which is known as the Bronze Era, was a man named Eugene Sandow, who you've all been watching on screen. The Bronze Era, which lasted from 1894 to 1939, is the least talked about, and athletes had limited equipment ranging from dumbbells and only barbells. Sandow, who is considered the father of modern bodybuilding, would hold shows for the public in which he would display his muscular physique. He wasn't showcasing his physique as a competition, rather as a display of strength or wrestling. Additionally, Sandow was extremely successful in marketing his exercise equipment and most definitely propelled the idea of bodybuilding into the public. He can be considered one of the first bodybuilders that the world ever saw. The first bodybuilding competition was put together by Eugene Sandow on September 14th, 1901. It took place in London and was dubbed the Great Competition. There were three judges: Sir Charles Laws, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and of course, Sandow himself. This event can be considered nothing but a success, with many bodybuilding fans attending, to the point where eager viewers were turned away because of a lack of space. The man who won this show was William L. Murray, and he was presented with a golden statue of Eugene himself. This trophy is now presented to the winners of the Mr. Olympia competition, but is now made of bronze. It would not be until 1950 when Steve Reeves would be given the bronze trophy for winning the NABA Mr. Universe, the exact one third place finisher A.C. Smythe received at the first ever competition. The Great Competition was the first major bodybuilding event and laid the foundation for the silver era of bodybuilding. The silver era of bodybuilding was from the 1940s to the 1960s and had some amazing athletes. Competitions had become more commonplace, and competitors had advanced in training and nutritional knowledge. The ideas of bulking and cutting and the usage of protein and additional food supplements all helped competitors bring never seen before physiques. During this time period, multiple bodybuilding federations were formed. The International Federation of Bodybuilders, otherwise known as the IFBB, was created by Joe and Ben Weider in 1946. While the IFBB is the most famous federation today, many others were created during the time period, some of which are the AAU, NABA, and WBBG. Many new competitions were emerging, and the popularization of bodybuilding within magazines, TV programs, and movies only furthered the interest in the sport. Sought after titles emerged within these shows as well, such as the one and only Mr. Olympia contest, created by the IFBB in 1965. Some of the most influential bodybuilders of this time were Bill Pearl, Reg Park, Jack LaLanne, and Steve Reeves. Many gymnasiums opened to accommodate all the new athletes, and some famous ones were Gold's Gym and Vince's Gym. One last thing to mention, steroids were created during this time frame, so it's difficult to tell if an athlete was enhanced or not. Some just had great genetics, but the real steroid users would emerge in the golden era, where we'd see physiques never thought of as possible. The Golden Era may be the most popular era of bodybuilding. Ranging from the 1970s until the early 1980s, many famous superstars emerged during this time, namely Arnold Schwarzenegger, Lou Ferrigno, Serge Nubret, Frank Zane, Sergio Oliva, Franco Colombo, and many, many others. This period in time, specifically the mid 70s, was best captured through the docudrama Pumping Iron, in which we follow a prime Arnold throughout his prep for the 1975 Mr. Olympia. The footage from this documentary shows what training was like for these athletes, and the physiques that they presented on that 1975 stage were considered the most aesthetic by many. As I previously mentioned, this period of time also saw the rise of anabolic steroid usage. Significant use can be traced to the 1960s and 70s, and it only continued throughout the years to come. A significant figure for the sport of bodybuilding was Lee Haney, who won a total of 8 Mr. Olympias in a row during this time. He, of course, used steroids, but showed the world what a complete body looked like. He didn't have ridiculous levels of muscle, but had an aesthetic flow reminiscent of the earlier golden era. Interestingly, at his seventh Mr. Olympia in 1990, which he won, the contest had banned the use of anabolic steroids, meaning that all competitors had to be off gear. He took the title that year, but it was a rather controversial competition because many competitive bodybuilders, like Sean Ray, were disqualified because of the drug testing. Other controversial Olympias during the Golden Era were the 1980 and the 1981 events, which saw controversial decisions being made on the winners of these shows. In 1980, Arnold returned to the stage after a 5 year hiatus and ended up winning the title. Although he did not look horrible, there are solid arguments that other competitors looked better than he did and should have won that night. Even more controversial was the 1981 Mr. Olympia, which Franco Columbu took. He was completely out of shape, and competitors like Danny Padilla or Tom Platz could have easily won that show. The golden era of bodybuilding was a time filled with aesthetic physiques, thoughtful posing, and overall attention to detail. The next era, the mass monster or modern era, ushered in the literal mass monster physiques. The mass monster era can be said to have started when Dorian Yates unveiled his 1993 physique. He was shockingly massive and still peeled to the bone, which was unheard of at the time. His 1993 prep photos revealed an insane level of muscular development, and throughout the 1990s and into the early 2000s, many genetic phenoms would present themselves. Athletes like Paul Dillette, Lee Priest, Kevin Levrone, Flex Wheeler, Chris Cormier, Nasser Al Sambati, and of course Ronnie Coleman all presented freaky physiques that pushed the human body to their limits. The late 1990s was arguably the most competitive time for bodybuilding, with top caliber bodybuilders frequently doing multiple shows a year. A show that comes to my mind is the 1999 British Grand Prix, in which all the top guys at the Olympia competed. They all looked phenomenal, and it shows that this period of time was most certainly an insanely competitive one. In the later 2000s, Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler, another genetic marvel, would battle it out each year for the Mr. Olympia title, which Jay eventually took in 2006. Jay Cutler would win the 2007 Olympia as well, but he would lose to Dexter Jackson the following year. He would regain the title in 2009, though, being the first ever former Mr. Olympia to lose and then regain the title. Cutler would win one more title in 2010, but by 2011, a new era would begin, which I would consider to be the current era. The current era of bodybuilding spans from 2011 till now, or 2023. During this time, we've seen a wide range of changes within the physiques. Phil Heath, a genetically gifted monster, brought an amazing package throughout his earlier career. He battled it out with Kai Green for a few years at the Olympia, which made for a great rivalry and storyline. Unfortunately, he was part of the bubble gut time period, which is basically a ridiculous amount of stomach distension. Heath did have one of the best backs of all time, though, and also possessed 3D pop to his muscle bellies, something that not many competitors have or had. Phil Heath lost the title in 2018 to Sean Roden and did not compete again until 2020, where he took third place. In 2019, Brandon Curry won the Olympia in an arguably weak lineup. However, I do feel that he brought a great physique. 2020 saw the rise of Big Ramy, who had been competing professionally since his debut at the New York Pro in 2013. He would win in 2020 and 2021, but missed the mark big time in 2022, leaving the door wide open for Hadi Choopan to take the win. The 2022 Mr. Olympia was probably the deepest lineup we've had in a while, and Hadi Choopan proved to the world that he could stand amongst the best, making himself the best bodybuilder in the world as of now. So that was just a quick, brief overview of the history of bodybuilding. I tried to keep it under 10 minutes while still covering interesting points of the sport's evolution. I'll probably make more detailed videos on each era as time goes on, and hopefully I'll be able to provide more insightful information by then too. This was just a fun little video idea that I had, and I thought I'd make a video and share it with you all. If you guys liked the video, consider liking and subscribing. It means a lot to me, and let me know in the comments if there's anything I should know. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.